we will call the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee meeting to order. Cal, take roll call, please.
Tracy Fluke.
Here.
Jessica Atkinson.
Here.
Dale Schmidt.
Here.
Kim Shanna.
Here.
Michelle Hrabowski.
Yep.
Sue Krieger.
Here.
And Kyle Jago is excused.
Okay, thank you. Going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, action on the agenda. Any changes to the agenda? Otherwise, a motion to approve the agenda would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Kim,
I'll second.
second by Jessica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Action on minutes. Consider, discuss, act on November 17th, 2025 Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee meeting minutes. And hopefully everybody got a hard copy of it. Any changes on that or a motion to approve is in order?
A motion to approve.
Motion by Dale,
Second.
second by Sue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6, items for discussion and possible action. 6A is consider, discuss, act on bike and ped comprehensive plan updates. Hopefully everybody, if you don't have the electronic, grab the hard copy in front of you, and Devin is here to go through it, so I'm going to hand it off to you.
All right, thank you. Well, apologies again for my little mess up. It was a bad way to start the morning when I thought I'd go look at the agenda and just double check things, and then I went to the attachment and it was like, that's way more pages than I thought I sent. And then I started looking at it and it's like, that looks nothing like what I worked on. And then realized I sent the wrong thing. So yeah, not what I wanted to do. And I guess with all that, I know obviously you all didn't have time with this. So I think, yeah, what at least makes sense and kind of what Joel had talked about is just at least talking kind of high level with what I have worked on and introducing it. And then I think from there, you know, if we want to have any discussion on it, we can. And if you'd rather sit with it and, you know, go through it, then we can do that and then revisit it next month and maybe hopefully take care of everything. Then.
What's our timeline again, Devin, for you? As far as
Well, so all my work, barring any just like edits or revisions, like I'm done now with the actual plan itself. So I'm all good work-wise. It's really now just, approving it, yeah, what works timing-wise for you all. So that is some good news, at least of that. But yeah, so I don't think, you know, timing isn't really a big thing now because, again, I've got things largely done. So that's good. I guess any comments or questions on that or just proceed with?
I'd say proceed.
Okay. All right, so yeah, I'll just give a little bit of a high-level overview of each chapter here, and then, yeah, hopefully that helps make sense. So kind of starting with the first, yeah, and I should say too that I think I'd mentioned maybe when I sent it over, the page numbering is just reflects what's like the actual document. So if I'll just refer to those page numbers. I guess I don't know. Oh, it's not in the packet anyway. Never mind. Okay, so starting with this first page, the section 2.3, page 35. So this we did talk about last time, but I came back and added, revised the mileage totals, and then added some additional kind of graphics and information on different existing facilities, just more in describing them. So this is kind of a continuation of our last meeting, and then moved the two maps to here also of existing facilities. The chapter 3, there isn't really a whole lot to this. It's just updating it kind of based on what we've done so far, and we'll probably have to update just a little bit more once the approval is done, but it's more just about the process part. But this is otherwise basically unchanged. Chapter 4, so that's on page 43. This is kind of mirrors the same chapter in the existing plan, and really what I did here was just update the data that from what was available. So again, looking at traffic counts, and then crash data, and then just talking a little bit about, again, existing facilities in the village. That's what this one is. So nothing, I guess I would say there's new things, but it's all really more based on just updating the information so it's current. Chapter 5, so it's on page 57, is the policies section. And this is, again, kind of moving from that identifying the different issues and talking about the vision and moving more towards the action part of the plan. And so the policies, again, are kind of what the village would follow to implement this plan, or ways to help implement the plan. As far as what's in here goes, the changes are mostly, let me just double check. So the first, there's just a couple of changes. Some of them were removing any reference to the visually narrowed lanes.
What page are we on? Sorry.
So 57, yeah, that's the start of it. And then I moved, let's see here. I don't want to go through each thing, but there's,
Yes, that would be, yeah,
Okay.
that would be.
But I'm okay.
Yeah, you're okay. Yep.
what was I going to say? Yeah, so pretty much all of these, aside from removing those, most of the rest of these are actually the same, and I kept the same from the current plan. One new one that I added,
Kim, do you want a hard copy, or are you good on your computer?
If there's an extra one, otherwise I am looking online. Okay, thank you.
and I don't know if this is redundant or not, but in the second policies related to goal 2, number 13, I added, and that was
What page you on, Devin?
58 now,
58,
sorry.
okay.
Jumping
No, it's all
ahead. This was recognizing the high visibility crosswalk design policy that you all had gone through somewhat recently and been adopted. So again, just acknowledging it here as well as a related policy. And then the other important thing that I wanted to note was related to goal 4, so on page 59, number 21 is a new one that I crafted, just again recognizing kind of the current discussion around e-bikes and e-scooters or e-motos, because I thought that seemed like something in my mind relevant going forward that you might want to keep an eye, well, yeah, I think you all want to
Yeah,
keep an eye on
we
it anyways, but just adding that to this as well. So that would be something, I guess, if there, not necessarily that we have to do now, but if there's any thoughts or comments on that or rewording at all, that would be one thing that,
I got one for 22.
okay.
Only because, like, with the bike rodeo,
Mm-hmm.
that's officially put on by public safety, so I would put the village public safety / and the park, rec, and forestry departments, plural,
Okay.
should offer programming. Because public safety does do that rodeo, and,
Okay.
and potentially they could do other things as well. You know, whether they partner with us or do it on their own, but I think both departments being mentioned is appropriate.
Okay. Okay. Madam?
In the policies where you said we got rid of visually narrowed lanes, did we decide what we switched that verbiage to? 'Cause I know we were talking about there were two different things last time.
Yeah, so, and I guess that would be something, you know, if you wanted to look at that. And I guess what we had talked about in terms of like wording around it was,
You said like a fog
like
line.
fog lines or, I guess, travel line
Yeah.
markers.
So when you said you removed VNLs,
Yeah.
is it we removed the verbiage and switched it, or did
No,
we
no,
remove-
the whole, so I can go to those. So the policies, make sure I got the right number here. Still shifted one. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing in this old plan. Now I got it. Okay. Yeah, so the two policies that I removed based on what we had discussed, so I'll just read it out if that's okay. So number one, what had been in there,
What page are you on?
so this is not in that
Not in
one,
this
this is,
one.
I'm
Okay.
now in the current plan. Existing visually narrowed lanes should be maintained over the long term as shared spaces for walking, bicycling, and vehicle parking, where no other bicycle or pedestrian facilities are planned, where conflicts between vehicle parking and bicycling or walking are not a concern, or where law enforcement or safety problems have not been identified. So that was the first one, and again, it didn't seem to make sense to me to really tweak that, just again, based on our discussion around visually narrowed lanes. The second one is when visually narrowed lanes are in need of restriping, they should not be maintained in locations where a wide outside lane or paved shoulder is the planned facility, where conflicts between vehicle parking and bicycling or walking are a concern, or where law enforcement or safety problems have been identified. So that's the second one. And, you know, I suppose maybe,
So these will or won't be in? the-
well, that was at least kind of what I'm proposing, but if,
I guess, so if it's out, I think getting that verbiage out, we definitely all agree on, but I guess my question to that would be, since this has been such a hot topic, what would the village do then if they're, so there's nothing in there saying to maintain them as a fog line? Cause you know it's gonna come up, so as that's gone, is like Brian gonna be expected to be maintaining those things that are there, or are those gonna go away, or are they, like, I just feel like taking it out of here.
I don't want to speak for anybody.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of Brian is expecting to maintain them, but more conforming, because there's no standard for
Right.
VNLs,
Right.
but there is for fog lines. And so part of one of the issues with the whole thing is some of the VNLs, and I'm just going to use that term, you know, were narrow and some were wide, and there's no standard. So by putting, like, replacing VNLs with fog lines, there's a specific standard
Yep,
for those, and so some of those very subtly over time you'll see kind of more conforming, so they're all similar in when possible, from what I understand,
Yep.
in width and travel length and so on.
which that makes total sense to me. I just think, because that's something that I know has come up, like even like over by Waterford and that, them saying like, they want the fog lanes still to be there. So, I think as long as that, and again, technically that's for drivers, so I guess that doesn't necessarily even need to be in a bike and ped packet, if you really think about it that way, because it is for that. But I just want to make sure that that
Yeah.
was the intent, is to still at least maintain, because with taking that part out, I could see them going away then, and then people being upset that they're gone, and then us not, because
think
even though
his-
they're not for bike and ped, that's who's gonna call us upset that they're gone.
Yeah,
The people that
and
have
I don't
them
want
right
to speak
now.
for Brian either, but I believe he also brought up that there are places where if they redo the road,
Yep.
they may disappear. Depends on the road.
Yeah,
So, but I think the important ones, like they redid them on Pioneer, which is important. It's
Yep.
critical. In my mind, it's critical.
yeah.
I think, like, do you know what's that street one block north of Marvell by Valley View? Truly?
Daisy.
Daisy has them,
Oh,
you know.
It's random,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
just
he
like
was
a
talking
random
about.
single block. So
Yeah.
when you were saying that they might disappear,
Something like that.
it's something like that. That's like why, I guess none of us, I mean, I can take a guess, but why were they even there?
Yeah,
But then like Dale said, you know, Pioneer or Timber or some of these other places that are a little more
makes sense.
feeder streets. that
Yep.
Might be more appropriate to keep them.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so I guess with that, what do you all think in terms of
So-
keeping anything related to that? Or is that, again, kind of like what you mentioned? And that's, I think, where my head
I think
was
it's fine
going.
to have it
was
out, because it's really
if
not
it's-
related to,
It's not bike and ped.
if it's not bike and ped, then it's more
No.
for drivers, so I think
And
it's
just so you
appropriate.
guys know, in the existing plan you have now, so what Dale was talking about would be on page 57, it would be part of a policy related to goal 1, which is the overall connectivity and safety. That's where those fit in the old plan. So that's where those were taken out of. So just so you know, so that's where it was pulled. So, and I agree with you, Jessica, I think it's not really a bike ped thing. And maybe if like you said, if Brian's looking at a road, I mean, there's certain roads that they should be on. They should be, a fog line. Doesn't necessarily need to be in there.
I'll just add too, I know we talked about fog line, but then there was a conversation in the last meeting about proper nomenclature. So the official nomenclature for a fog line is technically an edge line. So if we can retrain our thought a little bit, edge line is the proper terminology found in the MUTCD guidebook. Edge lines are used in certain applications in accordance to the guidance from the MUTCD, and those should largely be based on a transportation engineer's recommendation, right? It's mostly based on, to Tracy's point, it's not a bike and ped thing. It's based on the delineated travel lanes of the road for areas that may have low visibility, or you're trying to delineate where the travel lanes are within the road. Oftentimes you're seeing them more on freeways, highways, on-ramps, or rural roads because you're trying to delineate that shoulder where it drops off. And generally speaking, in an urban environment with curb and gutter, your curb and gutter acts as that edge line. But in certain applications here, we may want to, offset the travel lanes of the road because we want to incorporate parking lanes or bicycle lanes, or we want to kind of narrow the road width because we tend to have wider roads in the village. So at 37 feet, that's a lot of space for people to fly down by creating that edge line. It kind of creates a narrower path of travel. So again, it's not necessarily for pedestrians or bicyclists, it's to tell drivers where they should drive, where that center is and where that edge line is. And it should be largely based on the transportation engineer's recommendation for that cross section.
So we should call it an edge line instead of a fog line.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
I like
I know we
that. I like
talked a
that
lot about
better,
fog
too.
line last month, but
Makes more
yeah,
sense.
edge line is the technical term found in the MUTCD, and I think to everyone's point, by just eliminating it because it's not an accommodation, you're probably better suited as a result of that.
Okay.
One other comment, on the goal number 2, so on page 58, the pedestrian and bicycle facility section, that very first one, number 6. Would it be appropriate at all to put in the fact that the village uses the APBP bicycle and pedestrian bike racks guidelines for that? I don't know if it would be appropriate, because that's part of our ordinance, and when
Oh, is it?
yes, it's
Okay.
part of the village ordinances that when someone makes new development, they would have to abide by those guidelines.
That's, okay.
So I don't know if it's appropriate to put in there or not. but-
Where is that?
Number 6 on
Page
58
58.
under the policy related goal number 2. So the very first one under there.
I would just not want to paint ourselves into the corner. A lot of the park facilities that we put bike racks at, where I've been doing both, where we have the standard picket fence bike rack and then more of the appropriate official standard bike racks.
The ones with the picket fence are crappy racks.
They
don't work.
are, except those are the ones that the kids use. Those are the ones that the kids use, and they don't use the other ones. The parents use the other ones. But if you're just going to the park on a bike as a child, they use those because their bike stands up. And it is just my own observation, so I just don't want to paint ourselves in a corner where we're putting things in that don't necessarily, that don't get used by a certain segment of people at a particular facility. And I know, I wouldn't want to put my bike, if I had any kind of a bike that was worth anything, I wouldn't want to use that because, but as a kid, you got a bike from Target or wherever it is, and smaller bikes, those work fine for that type of thing. So and they're used, and I don't know what the answer is to that, but I just want to bring that up.
I guess.
Any other Devin, keep going.
Well, no, I was just, any other thoughts or comments on that one, or I guess that item specifically?
So for your purpose, we're leaving this out now as far as the lines, fog lines,
Yes. yeah.
completely?
Yeah.
Okay, just so you, all right.
Yep. Yeah, I guess, well, so if not, just circling back to these, what I wanted to say too. So one thing I'd be looking for this section especially is if there's any other policies, yeah, either things that, I guess aren't, to me, they all seem like they'd still be relevant, but again, I might not necessarily know all the context. So more if there's anything policy-wise in here that you all think would need revising, removing, or something else new entirely. I guess that's what I'd be looking for, like when we meet next, if there's anything specific to.
So if you guys have the original one, you could look at this too and see if there's anything in there that maybe Devin pulled that you go, oh, wait, that should probably stay, or that should be worded differently or whatever.
Yeah.
So that might be a good way maybe to look at it, Devin, or not?
Yeah, and really those two are the only, there was one that there was one that got moved to a different, I'm just trying to think which section I moved it. Somewhere that I moved it to. Well, it was related to, sorry, jumping all around. The WSDOT standards one moved from number 4 in the current plan to under goal number 2. And goals, I also combined, so what are goals? Policies for goals 2 and 3 in the existing plan combined into one section, again, more because we combined those into one goal earlier in the plan. So that it looks a little different, but all that's otherwise the same. And then, let's see, there was one other one that I removed. Oh yeah, so at the very end, what had been policies related to goal 5, which is now goal 4, again, based on how we redid things, I removed another visually narrowed lane reference also. But otherwise, then they're pretty much the same.
Okay.
So.
If we go to 4.3.1 and we talk about sidewalks, then didn't we in fact now have a I don't even know what you call it, but isn't there a requirement that they have to go, this is on page 48?
Thank you.
Yeah, hey shit, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Where we went and said that we wanted to be part of the plan review and we had the option, or we at least had input on whether there should be sidewalks. Not that it would force them, but prior to that, Joel, we didn't have anything on sidewalks, did we? When did we do that?
Yeah, so if I understand your question correctly, on any new platted subdivisions,
Yes.
they are required to have sidewalk on any new streets. That was gotta be at least 2 years now, I wanna say.
Yeah, I thought it might have been 22, but
Yeah.
do we want to reference that in here? Because we don't say when we put that in place or not. Maybe it's not that critical. Because it doesn't state that in here that we put
I don't know
that.
that the history behind it is absolutely critical, but I think, you certainly could identify that to the point of the bicycle rack component, that where we have a requirement under code, so just enforce the
Yeah.
requirements of code that says any new platted subdivisions would be required to have sidewalks.
It does say that the document recommends the installation of sidewalks on both sides for new urban and suburban neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It says that
Oh,
in
it
there.
does, okay, I
Yeah.
missed that.
Where was that, Sue?
4.3.1, like the second,
What
third,
page, yeah?
48,
Oh, yeah, okay, so in that,
third,
it's in the first paragraph, but it's a couple sentences in.
fourth line.
Yeah, and so that actually was a continuation of what's in the existing plan also. And then along with there's some language about different, for lower densities, depending on the street type, having one side or sidewalk on one side.
So maybe this is just confusing to me, but, okay, it talks about the Wisconsin Guide to Pedestrian and Bike Practices in that sentence right before that, and then
Yeah.
it says this document. So
Yeah.
is it referring back to the Wisconsin Guide to Bicycle or Pedestrian Best
yeah.
Practices, or is it saying this document
No.
are bike ped plan? So maybe
It-
if
it
it is
is
bike ped
actually.
plan, then maybe it should say that, because to me it's kind of confusing.
It is actually the
Wisconsin Guide.
Wisconsin Guide.
Oh, it is the
That- that's-
Wisconsin Guide.
Yeah, yeah, that's what
Okay.
because that actually is taken
Okay.
from that. So I can reword or just make sure that
Maybe instead of this, it should just say the document, instead of making it sound like it's this document.
Yep, perfect. If that's good. Yeah, good catch. Okay. So moving along, then, if we're all good on that for the moment. So
So what page start, get us back in
yep, so,
line.
okay, now we're going to page 60,
All right.
and this is chapter 6.
Does anybody, before we jump, does anybody have anything else or any other questions in regard to the policies? So the 5.1 section, which is on page 57, 58, 59, does anybody have anything on that? And I know we can all look at this and then look at the old plan too, if there's anything, so it can be revisited in Jan, but anybody have anything off the top of your head before we move on that?
I didn't write anything down on policy, so I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. So for chapter 6, at the beginning, I added some design considerations, and I think there was an element of this in the existing plan, but I just updated the graphics and kind of what we'll call, not definitions, but talking about different
Types of bicycles.
yeah. And again, the idea behind that is, really trying to design for the broadest group possible when you can. So that's kind of that's the first section. And then, let's see, that's one of the changes. And then really, yeah, the planning, design, and engineering resources. I think this section was in a different part of the current plan, but I moved it to here just because it, again, made logical sense. And then, again, revisited the safe system approach principles, again, just kind of as, so it's in the plan earlier, but also, again, just as kind of a guiding, not vision, but a thing to kind of evaluate through that lens when you're considering new facilities.
Can I ask a quick question, going back to 6.1.2 on page 61? Are all these the latest editions of all those plans? Because some are dated back to like
Yeah.
2010, because they just haven't redone them in that long.
No, yeah, so I double checked all of
Okay.
these and they're as current
Okay.
as those dates are.
Okay.
And yes, some of them are quite old.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially, well, some of the WisDOT ones, it's like they've updated them, but they still look like they still look like the original, like 2002 document,
Yeah.
but they have
Put
updated
some
it
things
a
in.
couple times,
Okay.
yeah. So those are the most current dates
Okay,
that we have.
thank you.
Yep. Yeah, so really then, kind of the crux of this chapter, moving, and again, this is based on our previous discussions and talking about, different options. In this chapter, it moved away from very specific and time-based recommendations and towards more general, options and things to really consider, when you're looking at anything new or, considering what, when something's really needed. And so how that kind of works out is with starting on map 7, so that would be page 63. It doesn't have the page number on it, but it's after 62. So the map, that map includes specific, so there are some points, and again, these were, I believe we had discussed these locations as possible places for crossing enhancements. And also, these were places that people had mentioned in the public input survey. So again, not necessarily that, something has to be like right exactly here, but these are kind of the important spots. And then corresponding to that on the next page, so 64, table 6.1, this is again more generalized than, the current plan has, a much larger table of very specific things. This is more general, but again, it's reiterating what earlier in the plan had been discussed in terms of important areas and kind of high level important things and making connections and specifically, directionally, looking at it through the 4 different quadrants. So that is a difference. And then I also added some information regarding signals. Again, this is something that, in the end, it'll be based on engineering, but I guess something to consider as a resource related to like the hawk signals and pedestrian beacons. The other items in the pedestrian section are largely the same as they were in the existing plan. And then the same thing, so moving on to page 67, the bicycle options are also along the same lines. Map 8, again, retain kind of the same points of like cross areas, and possible need of crossing enhancements. And then the possible route options and bike lanes were items that we had discussed in I think our October meeting. So that's again what's shown here. And then the corresponding table is also similar to the pedestrian table, where again thinking about making the connections to the different areas and creating routes that are more contiguous directionally. So that's kind of those are the big things in this chapter. Another thing that I added, so if we go to page 72, there are in the implementation plan section, so 6.5 and then 6.5.1 are just some different strategies that could be done in terms of implementing new things or considering new facilities. So again, not anything that you have to do, but just more tools in the toolkit. And then the funding sources, these are as up to date as I think they're as up to date as, trying to think the right wording. As current as I think they are, or I still can't say it right, but yeah.
As current as they can be.
As current as they can be, or as current as I could find.
Yes.
So that's what I'm trying to say. And some of those things have been around for a while and hopefully aren't going anywhere. Some of the federal stuff, it's hard to say because, again, the federal transportation bill will be presumably updated next year or looking towards 27. And yeah, I don't know what will happen then. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention in this chapter, so there's...
I'm sorry, can you,
Uh-huh.
is there anything new on the stewardship program on top of page 74?
Not that...
Actually, I thought recently it was gonna be gone again.
Well,
I haven't heard
I
much
guess I
lately.
should, I'll double check that. I didn't think it was, but I
Okay.
guess that's always,
Okay. I thought it was safe and then I heard it was gone again, so
Gone again right now.
is it
Pardon?
gone again?
I think so.
It's on or off, you said?
I think it's off, but they're trying to get it back on. There's like a secondary route they're trying to get it back on.
Oh, because there was something, was it just earlier this year, maybe?
I think this is within the last month or
Oh.
two that they,
Okay,
I
that's even more
read
recent.
somewhere that they're trying to kind of backdoor it through a special
Committee or
meeting
something?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I heard something about it recently. That's what I
Because they
assumed.
still couldn't come to a consensus.
Okay. I will double check that.
And it was more for,
She's got it.
but for like the recreational trail program, I think that is still
Certainly.
good. But actual stewardship,
Mhm.
which I guess the trail program is part of, but
Mhm.
especially as it comes to new land acquisition, that's where some of the holdup is, where
Okay,
one party wants more oversight by their party on what's
Sure.
approved.
was that related to some of the trail, like rails to trails stuff? Or is that, because I know there was some
Rails to trail stuff too.
talk around that also, like specific other requirements.
stuff, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll double check
Yeah, just
that
check.
to
Kim
make
just looked
sure.
it up and it sounds like right now it's not part of the 2025-27 budget.
Okay.
And that it will expire in mid-2026 if nothing is done, but they're trying to work through it, so.
Okay.
Just, yeah, and who
And I
knows,
may
by the
just-
time it's printed, you may not know
I
anything.
may just
so
reference, this has
just
been a
reference-
program,
Yeah, for 100 years.
you'll have to
and- Yeah,
keep an eye on it.
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So on page 75, in section 6.5.3, the action plan, this was also in the existing plan, and I left this the same, so it is as it is in the current plan, and this would be another thing specifically that I'd be looking for if any of these things aren't applicable, or if there are other, I guess, specific actions that should be added. That would be something I would, yeah, you all could think about that, or even from a staff perspective too, just so I make sure everything's relevant in that, or, yeah, again, village direction for some other things that I may not know about. So that would be kind of the additional thing to look at. Okay, so that's, I guess, that is my overview of what I had specifically in this, and wanted to, wanted to alert you all to. So I guess any other questions or comments on any of these items?
Is this the time for dumb questions?
No question is done.
Yeah.
Kim. No
Oh,
question
you
is
haven't heard my
done.
questions yet. Okay, so on page 35, it puts the total of bike lanes at 4.64 miles, and I just wanted to confirm with you. I'm bummed to see it, because then when I look at that, when I just look at the map, it looks like more than that. But does it measure out to that? I'm just confirming.
Yeah, and I think for bike
but-
lane miles, it doesn't count, unlike sidewalks where, I believe this is the case, sidewalks, it counts,
Both sides.
each side counts as its own number, if that makes sense. So if
Yeah.
there's like 2 miles, it's 4 miles.
Yeah.
I think with bike lanes, it's just if it's on the street,
Yeah,
it
'cause you're
doesn't
required
count
to
both
have bike
sides.
lanes on both sides.
Yeah.
You're not required necessarily to have sidewalks on both sides.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that,
So that might, so when you talk about bike lanes, it's including both in that
Mhm.
mileage, but it's not doubling it like it does for sidewalks.
Okay, so
Yeah,
this
and again,
blue
I-
adds up to that.
I know that, because I even kind of thought it's like, it seems low,
That's what I said too.
but that is, yeah, the number
too.
that we have for that.
Okay, additional dumb question, page
I'm
75.
gonna jump on this
Oh,
before.
yeah, yeah.
Just with, I need to talk to you, because there's no trail shown at the Ashwaubenon Sports Complex, which
Okay.
has an exterior trail, nor is the newer edition of the Argonne Park Trail, which is very long, but still
Mhm.
it's a boardwalk and a
Okay.
partial trail. So that'll need to be added on the
Okay.
vote too, but you don't even probably have that information?
I don't.
Which I'm guessing was why it's not on here, so
Yeah.
we'll have to correct that.
Yeah,
So
okay.
We've got some good numbers.
Okay, yeah, that would, and I guess then if I have that, that'll also add to these two, so, yep, that'll be good.
On page 75, under the engineering actions,
Mhm.
what is the difference between number 1 and number 2?
Oh, yeah, so that's one, the table, I already noticed I missed, so it should be 6.2 in number
Oh,
2.
okay.
So it is two different things,
Okay.
it just, right now it looks like one, but I had already caught that, so.
Thank you.
But good eye, also.
Kim, I'm not sure if you have another question after those two, but just wanted to kind of circle back to your original question. So it would be page 68, that's the map
Yep.
of the planned facilities. I think to some degree your question may be related to that too. So that's for bicycle facilities only. And I think it would be beneficial for the group to understand these maps a little bit, because these are really what's gonna guide the actual physical efforts over the next several years. And it just did some PDF here. Okay, there we go. So one of the things that we talked about, I think at our last meeting, or maybe it was at the workshop, about these bicycle routes, and that they're different than a bicycle lane. So bicycle lane is gonna be a delineated line on the road with a marked bicycle icon, right? And that's gonna indicate that there's no parking available in that area. It's dedicated specifically for bicyclists. The bicycle route is kind of like a share route where it's motorist and whatever can be there, but it'll be signed as a bicycle route. So there's no special privileges or delineations for bicyclists. They're just being identified as this is a route we would encourage bicyclists to take because for whatever reason, right? It connects points of destination. It may be a through street. It just makes logical sense to connect different quadrants in the village, that type of thing. So when you look at that map, that purple dashed line, there's a lot of bicycle route, but there's not a lot of bicycle lane. So even though we have 4 some odd miles of bicycle lane, there's a significant portion that's being identified as bicycle route.
Okay.
So my thought here is, or my point in bringing this up, is really kind of focus on these maps, because if these planned future facilities, either whether it be on the pedestrian side or on the bicycle side, those are the dash lines, if that's not realistic or relative to what your long-term vision is for the community, you'll want to make sure that that's identified. With that being said, I do want to point out under kind of the policy notations, we talk about when a road is an arterial or collector, we're going to evaluate that road anytime it comes up for reconstruction for what types of facilities should be engineered as part of that reconstruction. Bicycle lane, sidewalks, so on and so forth. But if there are specific areas in the village that we want to identify more purposefully and show it on the map, we would want to do that. And I think that relates to conversations we've had in the past, in particular when you look at that map that's on page 68, Devin's identified those intersections for where improvements should be. I bring this up again that area on Packerland, we identify Carroll as an area for an improved intersection. We've had a lot of debate and back and forth at this committee, where should that improved intersection go? Should it be at Carroll? Should it be at West Paulson? And although this map on 68 talks about bicycle improvements, the map that talks about pedestrian improvements is found on, get to that map, if somebody else can identify quickly. It was page 63. You'll notice that on that map, we haven't yet identified where those future pedestrian improvements should be. So I would take some time over the next, several weeks here prior to the next meeting is really focus on that. If there's a purposeful area that we want to address in the plan, we should include that. And I bring that up to counter that too, to some of this data here on page 62 is relative to our old plan, and I bring up Ori Lane and Marley Lane as streets with a planned sidewalk. If that's not realistic, maybe Marley makes sense because that's kind of that collector off of Lombardi to Morris down to Cormier. But if Ori isn't realistic, should that be identified? If it is, let's keep it in there. If it's not, let's be purposeful about where we identify where those future facilities should be. So I would just challenge the group to look at those maps and try to understand and identify those areas. And if there's something that's very specific that we want to address, I know we've talked at great detail about North Road, right? That's a very good example where we've called that out specifically. If there are other areas in the village that we need to include in that conversation, we should do that before we present a final plan to the village board. Just my 2 cents on it.
That's good. So Joel, for you, do we as a village, it seems like you go to some of the meetings, but if there's something in regards to bicycling or pedestrian that's either national or with the state of Wisconsin as a group, do you attend those, or is there an opportunity for somebody like Brian to attend that, to be educated maybe on something that's better or that's working better for other municipalities, communities?
Sure. Yeah, if we're aware of it, we can certainly provide opportunities. It's probably more relative to both our planning staff, so like Aaron Schutte, or our engineering staff, like Brian Rickard or Steve Berg. I can certainly attend, but oftentimes those trainings are very functional trainings versus kind of more planning aspects of it. So if we do become aware of them, we do try to participate. I know Brown County's going through that Safe Streets for All program. I know I've tried to attend some of those open houses. I know Brian has as well. Just trying to articulate to those groups some of the comments we hear, not only from this group, but from the general public. I think, in fact, and Tracy's gone to those meetings too. Ashwaubenon and I know Alloway has had some good participation. If you go to those meetings and you look at their maps, they had this heat map put up about all the areas of concern, and Ashwaubenon and Alloway have the really hot areas, and it makes it seem like it's bad here. It was just more or less, Tracy was there, I was there. I know Rebecca, I'm trying to think of her last name. Nyberg. She lives in Alloway. She's a really big bike and ped enthusiast. Was with the county health department. So Alloway has a lot of hot areas as well. We plastered the board with Post-it notes. So we do what we can, obviously, but if we're aware of it, we tend to.
So my question behind that was, under implementation strategies for the board, do we need to put something in there so that they know we would like you to attend those types of meetings? Or is that just a given?
Well, I think that from an education standpoint, at least within the education section, I think that's something that could be identified. So maybe Devin, if you wouldn't mind, just maybe looking at it as an opportunity, not only for staff, but I think others have brought that up to this group too. Are there opportunities for this group to be involved in those types of trainings or opportunities? Same with the village board, because obviously they're making policy decisions, sometimes maybe in a vacuum, and so if they have opportunities to attend those trainings as well, that would be.
Yeah, and in your case, or anybody else here, there's gonna be a cost factor there, where if it's us, they don't have to think about it. Right? So, just so they know, we would like somebody to be updated.
Yeah, and to couple that, this is related, unrelated, about kind of putting some type of language into the plan, and it wouldn't necessarily need to be its own category, but I know this group talked a little bit, either at last meeting or at the workshop, about equity. And so maybe at least within the encouragement section, again, I don't know that it necessarily needs to be its own standalone section, but maybe there's an opportunity under encouragement that we talk a little bit about equity. And what we would want to mean by that is, are there underserved populations within the village or underserved neighborhoods that we would want to look at? And at least try to understand, is there a need to serve those communities or those neighborhoods differently, or provide access to this system? And maybe that's the action item. It's just identify, are there communities, are there neighborhoods, are there populations that need some type of transportation or multimodal transportation to their neighborhood? Again, I don't know that it necessarily needs to be a standalone thing. I don't know that we're necessarily mature enough to get there, but certainly is an area within the encouragement chapter or section that maybe that's a conversation we should have.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think of Hanson Road, we keep talking about the sidewalk with all the apartments there.
Right.
And you see, I mean, I
thinking of
came,
Lee Road when I thought of that too.
yeah, came up Holmgren on the way here, and there's a guy walking on the road on that side, because one of those businesses, I believe, didn't shovel their sidewalk. So he's forced to go out and then go back in, and I'm like, that's where the ordinance thing comes. And maybe, I would assume he has a sidewalk, because everybody else did, but maybe not. So I guess I'm not pointing fingers, but it was obvious this guy was like
Yeah.
crowding the edge,
You know.
because there's not a lot of room there.
Yeah. Well, and I think equity, I was going to just bring up the equity because I noticed it's not mentioned at all in here. And it's not one of the action items either. And equity is now a big part of the safer system, and it's a big part of looking at bike and ped plans. So at least mention it, I think in the plans in some form, that we should look at facilities in an equitable manner, so we're not leaving out one section of the village and not accommodating another section, like accommodating the newer sections, but not doing anything in the older sections or whatever, just so we're fair as we can be.
I think maybe that could be another thing to consider is if something like that, would it make sense to have it as like a policy? I don't know if you'd say directive or like a kind of a policy ideal, or something that's more of part of the action plan itself. And so I guess maybe I'd offer that as a consideration, and then, we can put something in where it makes sense.
I mean, I already hear it's an equity thing, but it's like the village puts all our money in to the Packers, everything for Packers, they get all the money, but they don't put it in my neighborhood. I mean, I hear that. So again, it's, it is kind of an equity thing, but it's based on Packers. But I'm like, well, there's maybe more action. There's more need in that area, but I think equity is something that should at least be mentioned.
This is pretty minor here, Devin, but on page 48 under disadvantages, because this has come up more than once listening to Rex. I'm wondering if we shouldn't put in there underground utilities as disadvantages, because it's a big dollar item that I always think of Maine, right? When you,
Costs more to move the underground utilities than it is to put the trail and sidewalk in.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
bigger expense than the actual construction of the facility.
I don't know who's gonna read this, but if we were to go back to it, even for reference, it would click right away, because we've been through this.
So that'd be more as a,
Just a line item like you have, they're not necessarily a solution for bicycle, or they're costly to install and maintain. Well, that's one of the reasons why.
okay, I see what you mean.
I mean, you have that statement about under what are the disadvantages of sidewalks? And in there you talk about some of the related issues like right of way and all that stuff. So maybe it could just be listed in that
Yeah.
sentence.
That's where I was
Okay.
looking. Yep.
Yeah.
Like
Gotcha.
utilities, underground utilities, or
Yep.
however you would state that.
Okay.
We're hoping that the, all the new PDS lines that are going in all over the village are buried deep enough where we don't have to be moving those that they were just put in.
Out of curiosity, how does that get decided, how deep they bury them?
I would defer to Joel, but I'm gonna guess that they just have a standard depth, a rough standard depth TDS that they go with.
So I think, yeah, where we run into challenges is if a utility has an easement and we're working within that easement and that easement's not with us, then we may have some cost for relocation. If they are strictly working within our right of way and we're not extending into an easement or anything like that, generally speaking, then they have the responsibility of paying for the relocation of that utility. So typically, like a TDS, they could be 3-4 feet deep only, because they don't have to worry about frost issues. And then they avoid things like water, sewer, stormwater utilities that have more greater concern over frost. But in those cases, unless we're working within an easement, like on Main Avenue, if there was a utility easement that extended into the right of way, that's where we had a lot of costs then to relocate that. We had to purchase an additional easement. We had to basically relocate that outside of the right of way to accommodate. That's where it got really pricey for us.
That is fascinating. Would you have thought of that?
If you watch them put it in, you would. I mean,
Yeah.
because sometimes there's things already there, so they have to relocate theirs to fit within the, 'cause I mean, in my backyard, there were so many lines, and you could see where they had to literally manually dig to make sure they didn't hit something and connect, and, yeah, it was a,
lot of the newer subdivisions, when they put in the road, the infrastructure, and they plat out the lots, they'll have the right of way that might be, let's say, 40 feet or 42 feet in width. And then on the back side of the right of way, they'll add another 5 to 10 feet of the utility easement. And they'll put all of that inside that utility easement to avoid any conflicts then within the right of way, so they don't have to worry about water, sewer, stormwater, because the public governmental agencies will take care of that. Long time ago, they used to run the easements through the rear yards, and then they discovered that creates a lot of issues, because then if they have to go and the utility has to go and maintain the power or telecommunication utility, now they have to enter into somebody's private yard, and that gets people upset, because 30 years down the road, they forget who has the utility, and so on and so forth. So a lot of times down the new subdivisions, they put it in the front of the house. That's why you always see those pedestals, those utility pedestals everywhere in the front yard, is because they don't want to put it in the backyard to avoid those issues.
it depends who's putting them in, because if you go down, not Pioneer, they put the covers on the ground. In my backyard, I have 2 of them that stand probably about that tall. But I give them credit, because they're in their front yards, where mine's at least in the backyard.
Mine's in my front
So,
yard.
so, is it, yeah, people plant bushes around it, whatever. Going back to the crosswalk markings, didn't we come up with where he wanted to have a specific type of, didn't we have that discussion? Do we need to have that in here, or just the?
We did, and Devin does have it in there, so we do
Yeah.
have a high-vis crosswalk.
Oh, it is in there.
Yeah.
And Devin
Jeez,
does
I better read
identify
close.
that
Yeah.
in his plan document.
Where is
We'll
that?
continue to follow.
Is it on
49.
42?
I'm looking on page
58.
49.
Oh, 58.
58?
As on the policy related, it says the
Do you-
village will use the adapted high visibility, it's number 13.
But did you mean graphically, or did you mean the actual?
Well, I was looking at the graphics, but if it's there, I don't care, as long as it's, because I know he wanted to try and standardize.
Yeah, because it does say that we adapted the high visibility
Okay.
crosswalk policy to ensure consistent standards for high visibility
Yep.
crosswalk markings. That's on page 58.
It's number 13.
Number 13.
You gotta give me less pages to read down, so I don't miss this stuff.
Yeah.
was confusing back and forth
All
and
right,
one document.
at least
the
I
other.
know it's there, because I remember that discussion.
Become more
Yeah.
familiar with these
Yeah.
meetings, this will all start to make more sense.
Okay.
I'm just guessing, still being your second meeting, that
Yep.
you're like, what's being
Is there any other questions or comments anybody has now that you want to share?
Yeah.
Otherwise, Devin, what you would want us to do is look at this more carefully.
Talk about things.
And if you want, compare it to the original, if you want, totally up to you. And see if there's anything that was left out of there that you think should maybe stay in the new one.
Yeah.
And what else
Thank you.
do you want
Well,
us to do?
I guess so the other thing I was wondering, so obviously there's the stuff to review. If you want me to, because I could resend out the whole thing, and then you could just have the whole thing to look at and I guess consider for next time. And again, if there's still changes, we could say like change but otherwise things look good. So I guess that would kind of be my other question, is if you'd want that. And I could make, the couple of like tweaks that we've already talked about today. I could change those things really quickly
Okay.
and then
What do you
send out
think,
the whole
guys? Do the
thing.
whole thing?
I would like to see the whole thing.
I wouldn't mind the whole
Just,
thing, yeah.
Well, and then that'll also give you a lot more time, because I can
Yeah.
do that yet in the next couple of days, and then you'll just have it. But of course, you can still focus on what we're talking about here, but then you can at least have it all,
The whole thing.
just to, again, look through further.
Well, and some people didn't make the last meetings, like I didn't make the previous meetings, so if you got the whole,
Yeah.
it brings everybody up to speed based on what we have.
And please look at the plans, like Joel said, that show the different facilities, because that's a
Yeah.
huge thing. You
Yeah.
guys know that. If it's not in here and it goes on the village board for something, we're redoing Fred Street and we want sidewalks. If it's not in here, it's never gonna go anywhere. So please look at that really closely, because now it's very general. In there, those statements in there are very general. So if we go to village board with these little bit that's in there, they're gonna go, well, it doesn't specifically say Fred Road, so no, we're not gonna do that, or we're going to do this, or do it different, or whatever. So if you have something that you think is really important, please mark it, bring it forth. The one on like Packerland, I mean, that's been a discussion. We have the crossing just south of 172, but we've also talked about a secondary crossing by Skylark. That's not on there. That's something we've talked about and we've been working on, and we've had neighbors come in and we've had people ask for it, so that I think should probably be
Isn't that the red
included.
dot up on Packerland? On Carroll, isn't
Yeah,
that
there's
it?
one here, but there was also one discussed on the south end near Skylark.
There should be
There
one,
were two of them.
there should be
Should've
one
been
on
two.
Carroll, Paulson, and Skylar.
Yeah, so there, so just,
Do you want me
look
to
at that, and think of those things,
add-
you guys, that we've talked
I
about.
would put the three of
in the
them and
past.
then kind of just draw like a triangulate line, kind of showing that they're like as one type of a thing.
Okay.
And, or like an asterisk, you know what I mean? Like draw like a line to a point with an asterisk and then an explanation or something. Because we're probably not going to be doing all three. It's like, which one is the most beneficial to the community?
Sure.
But we don't know which one that is, or maybe there's two of them, like, who knows?
Okay, any-
Devin,
Oh,
just
go
real
ahead, I'm
quick,
sorry.
so
Yeah.
on the map, after page 46, page 47, and you talk about the collectors, the arterials and all that, where did this map, or where does that information come from?
So this is all, it's both WisDOT data, but then it's data that we have, or, sorry, when you say, do you mean the functional class itself or the traffic counts?
No, the classification, like a collector.
Yes. So that's WisDOT data, but
It
it
is.
comes, it's like through the community, through Brown County to WisDOT. So I think it's like a multiple step thing, but then ultimately, once that's been given to WisDOT, they recognize it officially for the functional classification. I believe that's how that works. But it's not just a random, like, it should be this, therefore, here it is, kind of thing.
I didn't know if it came from Ashwaubenon, but it's actually something from the state.
Yeah, well, and I think it's still, I think it happens
It's-
in, like,
Works together.
through various steps over time.
Okay. Because that's pretty interesting.
Is it based on ADT, how it's collector
Well-
or arterial, or is that not
I think
necessarily?
I think that's one of the considerations, but, you know, then it's also, I think, based on, like either designed and or posted traffic speeds
speed, yeah.
and the context too, which it's in. So I think there's multiple things that go into it.
So I mean, the main ones, if you look at the minor arterial collectors, and even principal, although they're mostly labeled as highways and stuff, are the ones that you really want to focus on for bike and ped accommodations. Because that's where people are moving, they want to get there. So just think about it and see what you think and your ideas, and then Devin will get us the plan shortly.
Yep.
So you'll have a little more time to look at it and see, and then ask questions. If you have questions, reach out to staff on it.
I was just thinking of like Timber Lane, just a collector. There's a lot of people that travel there to get up to Bagpack.
Yep, and out.
Get
Yep.
out, or to Hanson,
Yep,
get out.
Yep.
But not a big deal, just that,
Yeah.
that's why I was curious where the map came from.
yep.
Yep.
All right, anything else, Devin, that you have, or anything?
No,
Other words of
I
wisdom?
guess otherwise, well, I would just say thank you again for at least working through this as it is today. I appreciate it. And again, yeah, my apologies on sending out the wrong thing.
It happens, it happens.
So appreciate the
Happens to the best.
understanding
It's
and,
like dumping over your body, aren't you?
yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, items for next agenda, so we'll be back with this and hopefully the final document. Anything else for next agenda that anybody has? Otherwise, look, if you do come up with anything, let staff know.
And that would be January 12th.
I don't know, Kelly, do you know what the date of that is? Or anybody?
12th on the calendars right now.
Yeah,
January 12th.
let's talk that.
Okay.
January
Need
12th.
a second.
And we'll go back to 3:30, if that works for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Our regular time.
Second. Are we the second Monday?
Yep, second Monday.
I will not be
We
here.
bumped this. on
Oh, that's right.
purpose. Yeah.
Going to Hawaii.
All right, a motion to adjourn is in order unless there's anything else anybody has.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Dale, and anyone second to adjourn, or you want to stay here all day? Jessica?
Second.
All right, move to second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?